What's going on, cats and kittens? It's your boy D Davis from Man checking in one more again for an episode of the 360 Experience, 360 degree MBAA, mind, body, awareness, and assessment, because you have to know what's going on internally to function externally. And you have to know what's going on externally to function internally so that you are in perfect balance and alignment. But hey, at the 360 experience, we talk about anything and everything in this experience, baby. What I want to touch upon, I think I want to touch upon the civil rights movement. I know that's a hot button topic for a lot of the modern Negroes out here, because we were taught that these civil rights leaders were the apex of uh, moral superiority. Like they were doing everything they could do for the American Negro to be successful in America. But I'm a results-based person. I'm definitely a results-based person. And I have to look at the results of the movement to understand if the movement was for the people or against the people. And as we look and take a deep dive into the civil rights movement of the 60s, you start to understand that maybe the civil rights movement didn't help the people it was intended to help. You look at the markers after 1960, 1968, when the Civil Rights Bill was signed. I think the Civil Rights Bill was signed in 1968. I think it was signed after Dr. King's assassination. And what did the Civil Rights Bill really do to help the American Negro, help the American Indian? What did it really do? Because if you look at the indicators of success, economic indicators of success, if we're going to go by that standard, the Negro community / the American Indian community has fallen way, way behind from where they were in the 60s. Pre-1960s, the American Negro was in a way better condition, way better shape. We had, for the most part, two-parented households. For the most part, we had communities of people who looked out for each other, cared for each other. It was a community. You had Negro businesses. I don't like to use Black, because when you have a true understanding of what the word Black means, I try not to use Black. So I'm gonna use Negro or American Indian, because if you look at what is on the civil rights movement bill paperwork, if you check the paperwork, it's going to say Indian rights bill. So we're gonna use that language, and I'm gonna use that language when referring to quote unquote Black people. But the only thing the only thing that was changed in America after the Civil Rights Bill was the integration of the quote unquote Black dollar into I guess the white structure. That was the only thing that integrated. For the most part, I'm not going to say. I was going to say, for the most part, the Black communities have been damaged. They've been separated, and that's clear because we no longer have Black, Negro, American Indian communities. Right now, we have hoods and projects and places where people live. There's not business conducted in these areas for the most part. There's not commerce conducted in these areas for the most part. I mean, there's, local businesses, but how many of those businesses are owned and operated by the American Negro? We have to understand that just because there are businesses in a particular community, if those businesses are not owned and operated, it's just the business that is catering to the Negro community. But when the doors are locked and the lights go off, that money goes out of the community and goes to somewhere else. So those businesses, if they are not owned and operated by people in those communities or people with close ties to those communities, people who are interested in the investment and the success of those communities, for the most part, though, that money that is generated within those communities are taken out of the community and goes to other communities for their benefit. And if we understand what the civil rights movement, civil rights bill truly was intended to do, because if we look at the integration of schools, quote unquote, Black students, Black scholars had better educations. They had better outcomes with the education, even though the schools at that time, what they say, were not the best, were poorly funded, weren't up to date. Those students, they still learned, and they still were able to, for the most part, become productive members of society. Even back pre-civil rights movement, pre-civil rights bill, those quote unquote Black people, they were able to become successful for the most part. And then we have not everyone's going to be successful. Not everyone's going to be successful. And when you have people who are placed in certain environments where, I'm going to say this, and I keep seeing this, so I'm going to say this, the projects, lower income housing, places like that, that is the true reservation. That's the true reservation for the American Negro, the American Indian, where you have, what do we have? In those low income communities, you have an abundance of liquor stores, depending on the area. You're probably not going to have gun stores, because lower economic communities, low income communities, they usually don't have gun stores, even though there's an abundance of guns in those areas. Surprisingly, those are usually the places where gun control is present, even though there's a whole heap of guns on the street. Crazy how that happens. Going back to the civil rights bill. So, as I'm kind of summing things up, so the only thing that was truly integrated between white folks and Black folks was the money, for the most part. And then you have, some people who were able to leave those previously all Black, all Negro, all American Indian communities, and they were able to go into the suburbs. They were to move out. They were able to, leave those, leave that neighborhood where crime probably was starting to rise because of the social economic reasons that were going on, gangs, drugs, blight. So people just made the decision for their families to leave. And then when those successful Blacks left that neighborhood, successful Negroes left that neighborhood, guess what else left? That money that those doctors, lawyers, physicians, teachers, all those people with those professional jobs, they left the community. and they left that money that was going to the schools, going to after school programs, neighborhood programs, community programs. That money was taken out of the community and brought elsewhere. I know because I took my money and went elsewhere. I did it myself. But that is the reality of the system in which we live, where people had to do what was best for them and their families, or was best for their resale values. They did what they had to do to leave a place with a lower socioeconomic base. Because if you leave those places with a lower socioeconomic base, when you look at the retail values on houses, real estate, you understand why people do what they do. Even people that's down for the cause, when you look at your pocket, you be like, all right, man, I got to get up out of here. Because when you look at home properties, it's a lot lower in those areas with quote unquote an abundance of Negroes, abundance of Black people, quote unquote. And that's done for a reason. Truly done for a reason, because in the war between, I guess, the races, we really don't pay attention to the economic war. We're paying attention to the skin. Who got the black skin? Who got the brown skin? Who got the dark skin? Who got the melanated skin? Who got the light skin? Who got the white skin? Paying attention to all the other stuff, but we're not paying attention to what really matters is your access to capital, your access to wealth. Your access to capital, your access to wealth, that's an indicator for future success. And in this war between the blacks and the whites, I don't want to say it's a war, it's a mental war, it's a psychological war. But in the battlefield in which we are playing right now, we have been misled into thinking that it's all about skin, when it's actually all about green. At the end of the day, it's all about the green, because the green is capital. You can invest, you can build, you can create opportunities for your children. What the civil rights movement actually did was it was the illusion of inclusion. So you thought that once that bill was signed, everything was going to be all right. We're going to get these jobs. We're going to get this affirmative action. We're going to be all right. Like Kendrick Lamar, we're going to be all right. But all of the markings of the civil rights era, the policies that came out of the civil rights era, the civil rights movement, everything that came out of that civil rights movement, it has shown that there has been little to no actual progress that has come about from the civil rights movement. Because the civil rights movement was not about gaining capital, building capital. It wasn't about ownership. It was about, oh, I can get a job. I can work for this white man. I can work for this white woman. That's what it was about. Prior to the civil rights movement, for the most part, Blacks, American Negroes, American Indians, they had stuff. They had buildings, they had property, they had farmland. Yeah, big old houses, land. Yeah, all that prior. Go watch some old movies, some old Hollywood movies. I know it's movies, but just go watch how them people was actually living outside of the city. I say this, them cities have and I think always will be, cesspools, places for you to get lost in, just behavior and activities that, if you don't have a good moral foundation, a good solid, if you're not disciplined, if you're not strong, if you're not structured, a lot of the vices that are existed within the city, they will corrupt you. That's why they want to attract people to the city so much. They want to get people off the land, where people just got lots of land and lots of peace, and you just chilling. Maybe get some goats, get some cows, get some sheep, chilling. You're self-sufficient. Provide for your own. You do some farming, do that. But they don't want that. No. They want you in that system. Them cities. That's the system. Because what comes with those cities are those programs that make you dependent upon the program for your sustenance. But when you on that farm, when you on your land, you ain't got nobody to go to for your sustenance. You got to depend on your own two hands, your own 2 feet. You may got to get them kids out in the field, put them to work, give them the game so that they themselves they can learn how to provide for themselves. See, that was the old way people did it. That was the old way to shine. Got to it. Civil rights bill came, got lazy, got dependent, thought the government was going to save you, thought the government was going to provide for you, thought that affirmative action was going to get you them jobs that you really wanted to get. Got you into college. I know it worked for a little bit. The people that came out in the 60s and 70s, they got their jobs, they got their education. They was living high on the hog with a belief that the system would provide for them. But look, what happened with their children and their grandchildren? College was a lot cheaper when they went to school. They didn't have to take out them big ass loans. They didn't have to do that. They could have worked their little job at the car wash, wherever cats was working back then. Pay for school themselves. They ain't have to worry about no debt. They ain't have to worry about none of that. Because real talk, the civil rights, the people in the civil rights movement, the Martin Luther Kings and the who was these shines trying to speak for the blacks? Them people, they was looking out for your best interests. They were not looking out for your best interests. They wasn't looking out for the people's best interests. Because guess what? Guess how much college costs now? You go into debt for a fucking education now. Think about that. You go into debt for education. You graduate school already in the hole. Aren't these policymakers, aren't they supposed to, make sure that the colleges and the institutions, they're not just reaping a huge benefit off the backs of the unsuspecting people who want to, get some colleges, get some learning, get some education, so that they could be prepared for a career, so that they could be successful. Shouldn't you, or people who are working within the government, shouldn't you make sure that the future of society, they don't start off in debt? I don't know. It seems like a failure by the people who are elected to represent us. So them first people, the ones that I guess, put in the work, they seem to benefit from the civil rights era. They got their jobs, they got their education, they got their low interest loans. A lot of people, making the policies, advocating for the policies. They seem to be all right. They seem to get the benefits. They seem to get the set asides, But how beneficial is that for everybody else? The 90%. If you look back into the beginnings of the NAACP and the what's homeboy name? Not Henry Louis Gates. Dubois. He was all about the talented 10th. Wasn't he? Wasn't they? Wasn't them NAACP, Boule, Negroes, wasn't they all about the talented 10th? That there had to be a hierarchy within the Negro community? That's what they were saying, right? So the college educated people, I want to say they can all pass, or most of them pass that brown paper bag test. Them people were put into position as the leaders of the Negro race. But they were going to be on top of the Negro race. They were going to be the archons of the Negro race. Look what an archon is. Go find out what that is. Interesting stuff. This was in the early 1900s, 1906 to 1915, 1920. This was early in the 1900s. These is all college-educated Negroes. It was so much inequality and racism going on, yet them shines got educated without affirmative action. Damn near 70 years before affirmative action happened. We got to really start paying attention and start looking at at things that give us a better perspective as to what was really going on in those early years. Or have these people been blowing smoke up our nose for the last 100 years? These are questions that really need to be asked, answered, just to get some perspective. At 360 is all about gaining perspective, a 360-degree perspective, because with the more information, the better the analysis should be. If you're looking for truth, if you're not looking for truth, it doesn't matter the amount of information that you pick up or that you receive. It'll be a false analytical breakdown if you're really not looking for truth. I'm looking for truth. I've been looking for truth for a long time. I just want to figure out what the fuck is going on out here. Because I'm tired of turning on the TV, tired of turning on. I don't watch the news, but when I sometimes do see the news, it's always about the downtrodden Negro. All about the downtrodden Negro and how horrible these white folks is, and these white folks, they just keep oppressing us. They keep holding us down. Just these mean white folk. Mean white folk. But these talented TIF Negroes are supposed to be the ones that's, representing on our behalf. They're supposed to be, the people that's down for us and fighting for policies that are going to be beneficial for us so that we can compete economically, socially. Because racism or race is all about the breakdown of resources. And for the last 115, 120 years, 150 years, I would say that the American Negro, the American Indian, the quote unquote Black has been relegated to the bottom. And we got all these people, politicians, shines on TV, people that be in the White House all the fucking time, supposedly arguing for us. But then when you study these people, they all got the paper. They all got the bag. They all living in these nice ass houses, multiple cars. They chilling. And they keep talking to us about the evil white man and how these white folks is so bad. Yet when you see them, they live amongst all the white folks. And their friends is all the white folks. Some of their partners are white folks. I don't know. I think we've been sold a bill of goods. The main people talking about they're so upset about white people are lovey-dovey with them. I don't know. But yet, the 90%, they ain't got them big ass houses. They ain't got them big ass cars or nice ass cars. They ain't got what you got. They still at the bottom. The NAACP, that's been around since I think 1904, 1906, something like that. They still talking about the same fucking shit. There's been no progress. I'm the type of person I can't do something over and over again and there's no progress. If there's no progress, you got to reevaluate the methodology of what you're doing. Or maybe a lot of these places, these institutions, these NAACP, these civil rights leaders, maybe they ain't for the 90% at all. Maybe they're for themselves, to enrich themselves, while simultaneously talking about these evil whites and how oppressive they are. I find that strange because they talking about white people all the fucking time, yet they don't seem to be oppressed. Make that make sense. I'm just looking at things from a 360-degree perspective. Because if you're going to be so gung-ho about something, at least know something about it. Try to know it from the rooter to the tutor, from the inside to the outside, from head to toe. I don't know. Can somebody, I'm waiting for somebody, anybody, as I begin to land this thing, as I begin to look for the runway, can anybody give me data, give me examples, something to show me how the civil rights movement was actually beneficial to quote unquote Black people. I just want to know. All the indicators that I know of. I mean, just being friends with white people, that's cool and all. Like, I'm friends with white people. I got white people quote unquote white people, because they ain't white. Just like we ain't black. So I got quote unquote white people who are my dear friends. Consider them family. So it's not about racism with me. It's just I need to know these people who keep telling me about these evil white people and how bad and how oppressive they are and were. I just want to know why they ain't oppressing you. Where's your oppression at? Hmm? Hmm? Talking heads on CNN, MSNBC, the who the shine are using all them words. Michael Dyson, him, all them talking heads that make the American Negro, the American Indian, the American shine, make them feel like a victim. Why do they keep giving the American Negro, the American shine, the American Indian? They're trying to give us an inferiority complex. If you're not paying attention. If you have an inferiority complex, you're always going to be you're going to think that the world is against you. When you think the world is against you, you're going to act in ways to survive. And people who feel that their life is in danger, their life is in threat, their life is being threatened, they don't have no peace, no security, you might do things that, because you think you got to survive, you know you got to survive, you're going to do things that are silly for your survival. I don't know if I went somewhere off the cliff with that, but as I'm landing this plane, somebody, anybody, doctors, I want the scholars, I want the people with the degrees on the wall, the PhDs, the master's degrees, the bachelor degrees, the high school degrees. We got to have some conversation. We got to have some dialogue. We have to ask these serious questions. What the fuck did the civil rights movement actually do for quote unquote black people? My opinion is they didn't do a motherfucking thing for black people, but give them an inferiority complex. But that's just me. Hey, this is the third edition of this that I've dropped. The 360 Experience with your boy D. Davis Fomer on Instagram. Hey, y'all check it out. In the process of understanding, so we don't understand, but we overstand, so we can understand. I also do mindset awareness because we have to understand ourselves. We got to do that work so that we won't be all discombobulated and off kilter. But yeah, I do that. 360 MBAA on Instagram. That is what is that? That's the 360 MBAA page. DM. I'm also D Davis _ Mayor. Instagram follow. That's a private page, so I'm very discreet as to who I let on that page, who I let follow. But the 360 MBAA, that's open for everybody, anybody. Follow. I think I post some dope shit. Some shit that really, if you take it in, it's gonna be all right. But for people who need a little bit more, they need someone to talk to. Holla. 360 MBAA, Mind, Body, Awareness, and Assessment. And I'm out, bitches.